of the Swiss Alps in Lake Geneva. The day I arrived at school, I could not wait to see my room, get everything set up, and meet my roommates. My parents went with me and stayed there during orientation week. During the first days of orientation, I met a group of girls who were also from Mexico, and we all got along very well. We were all new to the school and did not know anyone, so we all became really close and ended up having a long-lasting friendship. At this time, I was so excited to start this new experience, and I wanted my parents to leave. At first, I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it actually was. But leaving my family and friends behind was one of the biggest challenges I faced once I had arrived in Switzerland. I had never been away from my parents, and once they left, I started crying, thinking how much I would miss them and that I would not see them again until Christmas. At first, not everything turned out the way I had imagined, and I wanted to go back. Living with someone you don't know is not easy. The roommate I had was one I had nothing in common with. And even though I tried, we never talked to each other, not even a simple good morning. Living with her made me uncomfortable and more homesick than I already was. After a month went by, I requested a room change, and 2 weeks later, I was moved into a room with 2 girls who were from Russia and Korea. Along with 2 other girls from Ukraine and Mexico, they ended up becoming my best friends. After that first month passed, things started improving. My room felt more home-like, and I was with people I could talk to and have a close friendship with. Being without my parents was still hard, but not a day went by in which I would not talk or text my mom and dad, especially when it came to asking permission to travel with my friends. Every other weekend, the school would permit you to travel anywhere with parental authorization. This was one of my favorite things and what I missed the most about living in Switzerland, because I was able to travel all over Europe alone with my friends. We would go to a different country on each trip, and it was a time to be away from school, go out, and have fun. During spring break, I had the opportunity to travel to Thailand as a service trip with my school. Apart from sightseeing, going to temples, and beautiful islands, I also went to a children's home that was located in the poorest parts of Thailand. Here, we interacted with kids that have to live there because they have nowhere else to live. Interacting with these children and seeing how small things like dancing and singing would make them the happiest kids on earth made me realize how privileged I am and that I don't need much to be happy. The hardest part about going to Switzerland was probably leaving Switzerland. There was nothing I wanted more than to stay there and finish my senior year. I had made some of the closest friendships I've ever had at TMI. Coming back home was more challenging than I thought, because I faced challenges I never imagined I would have had to face. During the summer, my family and I went through the hardest times we could have ever experienced. Exactly 8 months and a day ago, my grandma passed away. This was very hard for me because while I was away, my parents had told me she was very sick. When I came back, I thought she would be better, but the last day I saw her, she hardly recognized me. On her last day, I was going to the hospital to say goodbye, as my dad had told me she had little time left. When I was heading to the hospital, my dad called my mom and said she had already passed away. I broke down in tears because I did not have the chance of saying goodbye to her. Not being able to say goodbye to her is still something that is hard for me. After this, my family and I went through another difficult challenge. My dad was being falsely accused of something he hadn't done, and this put my family at risk. We went through this for about 3 months, and these months were the hardest my family and I had ever been through. Thankfully, things were resolved, and my family was out of danger. I admire my dad and his courage for doing everything he could to keep my family safe and being able to resolve this any faster than any of us could have imagined. Going through this made me realize that life is short and everything can change in the blink of an eye. It also brought my family closer together than it had ever been before. My year in Switzerland was one I would not change for anything and one I will never forget. It was a life-changing experience that made me appreciate everything I have. Being away from my family made me realize how much they mean to me and that there is nothing they wouldn't do for me or I wouldn't do for them. I also met people who influenced me to become a better version of myself and friends that became like a second family. I went through the best and most incredible times of my life, and at the same time, some of the hardest and most challenging. I encourage you to make the best out of every opportunity that is given to you, and to appreciate everything you have, because there are people out there that have nothing. And never take anything for granted, because life is not perfect. Make the best out of every day of your life, because everything can change in the blink of an eye. Mom and Dad, thank you for everything that you have given me and for always supporting me in everything I do. I love you. Thank you.